All right, we're done with our lesson. This last bit is just some independent practice. Now I'm going to model some of these problems for you, but the idea is that from the three parts that you've watched and maybe rewatched, you're able to find the inverse of a function. The idea is that I'm going to give you a variety of functions, and you're going to go ahead and do whatever you need to find them by themselves. Let's go ahead and try a couple. All right, remember, to find the inverse of a function, think of the 1, 2, 3. Replace all of your x's with your y's. And vice versa. Step 2, isolate y using inverses. And then step 3, flip. Usually as a process of using the inverses and replacing it, the y will be on the other side. So let's go ahead and do a couple. Number 1. Before I do any thinking, I'm going to go ahead and replace my x's with my y's. So I see a y. X, y. The rest stays the same. Step 2, get y by itself. So since I'm using inverse operations, you want to go in the inverse order. You want to add, subtract, multiply, divide, then do exponents, then do parentheses. So I'm going to add 16 to both sides. It is going to result in x, but plus 16. And then it's going to be equal to negative 4y. The 16 and the negative 16 cancel out. Now, my second inverse, I'm going to divide by negative 4. I'm going to divide by negative 4. This is going to leave me with x plus 16 all over negative 4 equals 1. I can go ahead and flip it, and I can leave my answer as x plus 16 over negative 4, or I can actually go ahead and divide both by negative 4. So my other option would be that I have y equals x divided by negative 4 plus 16 divided by negative 4. And I'm going to move that negative up in the front. That's okay. And then 16 divided by negative 4. A positive divided by a negative will be a negative. This is equivalent as well. Depending on the application, one situation might be former than another representation. All right, for this next situation, step 1, replace my x's with my y's, and vice versa. So this is actually a y. This is going to become an x. It's going to become a y. Equals, the y is in the parentheses, plus 1 to the third minus 5. I am going to reference that what I'm going to do first, because I'm using inverses, I have to go in the opposite order of operations. The opposite order of operations says that I'm going to add and subtract first. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides. and it's going to produce x plus 5 equals y plus 1 to the third. Now, because of this order, there is no multiplication and division to do. But I'm going to take the cube root of the left and the right side. So x plus 5 equals cube root and both of these are 2. The cube radical. Radical is a fancy word for the square root or the cube root. Okay. So what I want you to notice is that this radical and the power, when they're the same, are going to cancel each other out. So what I'm going to be left with is the cube root of x plus 5 all equals y plus 1. Now, I need to get y by itself. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take away 1 from the left, 1 from the right, and then this is going to result in cube root of x plus 5 minus 1, which is equal to y. And then for my final answer, I'm just going to flip it. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, let's do one more. Like a robot, replace your x's with your y's and vice versa. Everything else stays the same. Okay. Now, what I'm going to need to do is get rid of, God, I don't know why. 4 radical 2x 2y minus 8 with the 7 on the outside. So I'm going to use my inverse operations orders. Remember, I'm going in the opposite. Normally it's please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Now I'm going to go in the opposite order. So I'm going to minus 7 from both sides. This is going to result in x minus 7 being equal to 4 times the square root of 2y minus 8. I am still on the add and subtract step. Now I'm going to multiply and divide. I'm going to divide this by 4 first. This is going to lead me to x minus 7 divided by 4. And it's going to lead me to 2y minus 8. When The square root is by itself. Then I can apply my inverse operation. I'm going to square both sides. This is going to produce x minus 7 over 4 squared equals and then what's going to happen is that the radical and the power are going to cancel each other out, leaving me with just 2y minus 8. Don't feel the need to expand it, although you may. It is fine if you leave it complicated. All right, so at this point, we are almost there. We got rid of the radical. Now we just have to get our y by itself. So this is going to jump in back to the first two steps. I'm going to add 8. But this 8 is going to be on the outside of this group. So it's going to look like the following. It's going to look like x minus 7 over 4 squared plus 8 equals 2y. I'm going to divide each side by 2. This is going to leave me with y equals x minus 7 over 4 squared plus 8, and then the whole thing divided by 2. Even though this is a complicated equation, is the y by itself? Yes. Mission accomplished. Hope this helped you. Check in with me if you need any assistance getting through lesson 2.